I believe with 100% certainty he's still alive.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
If I were a betting man, I would say he's still alive.
Julian Dorey forged an empire of curiosity, launching the Julian Dorey podcast
Julian, you've done a lot of stupid shit in your life.
into a juggernaut that now commands over 1 million followers,
This is the stupidest shit you've ever done.
pulling CIA operatives, elite soldiers, whistleblowers, and renegade thinkers into conversations that expose hidden truths, shatter illusions, and leaves listeners sharing the abyss of power, corruption, and the human nature itself.
If I have 100 people in a room and 99 of them are good people and one person's evil, evil can win. This is a case that since 2019, before I was doing the podcast, I have obsessively looked at because it always fell at each point where we even realized it was bigger than it was. It consistently then would go up a level and feel bigger than it was. But with the latest drop, it was the biggest step it ever took to where it's like, what the fuck? Like, we can't rule out like the craziest shit.
I know you can't say everything you saw, but you did see all that you know of the government documents that has not been made
Every
public.
single thing, including everything that was made public. Prison cell is not what was drawn on the schematics. The DOJ, in their final reports, used pictures of different cells than what were his, and he was drawing up escape plans.
Not suicide.
Not suicide plans.
Yeah.
Escape plans. We have it from his cell. I actually can't believe I'm saying that because I'm still processing what I saw. Well, thank you for that intro. That was it's hyping me up. I'm from Jersey, just to be clear.
Jersey?
I can't have stolen valor of New York City. I love it on this side, but close enough, right there.
I have to say, don't change your position towards me here. I always talk trash to Jersey, but then when I meet someone,
you do.
I'm like, because I come here and it's like, I'm from the South, so it's so different for me.
Uh-huh.
And then I come here and I meet people from Jersey, and everybody I meet from Jersey, I love them.
That's right.
But just coming here, it's like, it just feels so different. Like I grew up in the country. I love fresh air and being outdoors. And I come here and just feels like so like condensed and closed in and dirty to me. But then I meet like amazing people like you.
Oh, I'm not so dirty.
Yeah. So I gotta admit, like I gotta be transparent. Like I always talk trash, and I'm some of the best people I've met.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad you're liking the people you meet. That's the thing about Jersey, though. It has everything.
Yeah.
That's why they're making it Hollywood East now, because there is literally every type of, I don't want to say climate, but land type around here. If you go into northwestern Jersey, you got mountains. If you go into, where we are right now, you got a more city feel in Hoboken. If you go down into the bottom tip of the state, obviously it's all farmland, and there's a lot of that up north as well in the northwest part of the state. That's why they call it the Garden State. If you go all up and down the east coast of it, you got the famous Jersey Shore and everything in between. We have vineyards here, and then you got the Pine Barrens in the middle. So there's all different types in New Jersey.
Really knows that, right? And I didn't.
That's what I'm saying. You don't know that.
You fly into Newark, and it's like.
Yeah, no. You don't get the best idea of everything we have to offer here when you fly into Newark. You get the Port of Elizabeth right over there. But anyway, thank you so much for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm thanks for hosting your studio. Not everybody is willing to that does a reciprocal is willing to just swap the host seat. So I appreciate it.
Oh, dude, anytime. That kind of goes with the business. That's what we should be doing.
Super cool like setup you have here. You got
Thank you.
We got, I don't know if we can see this on the camera, but we got the background of what is this, the skyline of?
New York City, yeah. So you can see that on camera 5. And this is shot, I believe, from 30 Rock, looking down south towards New York. But what I like about this is the other side of this wall actually is New York City, right here. So it's like kind of thematically that way, but
like almost like a window.
Yeah, in some ways. I like putting that part up.
And then you got a lot of behind you. You got one of my favorite all time movies, Gladiator.
Oh yeah.
I think you and I are both movie buffs. So.
Yeah, no, I Gladiator, we put this background in last August, and it was like the final thing in the studio where it's like, that's it. That's what we want.
Well, I mean, you built an amazing channel.
Thank you.
And you're covering topics that I really am passionate about. Like, and I do. We were just on the phone right before we came on. Fox Media is, Fox News is the place I go. I do I'm a contributor there. I go on. I used to be on like once a week. Now I'm probably like once a month, and on Fox and Newsmax and stuff like that. But even for me, like it's super frustrating to go on those outlets and I get 3 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes at most, and then I'm sharing that with the host. And sometimes I'm on a panel with another surrogate or a guest, and I'm not really getting to get my point across. And the listener only gets like these wave tops. So what I believe the future is, and where people actually could get real independent truth is in the podcast medium. And so that was one of my motivations for starting the podcast, is because I was going on all these major media outlets and only getting to say, 3 to 5 minutes. And I'm like, I want to talk deeper. I want to talk more. I want to bring on people that know more than I do, talk about things that will help people. My show is called The Resilient Show. So that way we help people become more resilient through being more informed and hearing amazing stories. And, but I believe information is resiliency. Like the more information you have. And so you've really done that in a way that's so impressive. You've done that in a way that's so impressive. What was your motivation for launching into this long form podcast space?
Dude, it was an odyssey, and then a really quick odyssey in a way. I started on Wall Street out of college because I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. I had to figure it out. And, I worked hard there, but I was not a fit in any way. That was pretty clear. And so it was coming up like in my part of the business that I was in, it's like you work for 4 or 5 years, grind like a dog, you make no money. If you do a great job, you get the offer, now you make money. So I worked for an amazing guy who was like another dad to me. And I got to the point where I got that offer in late summer 2019. And I knew I couldn't say yes. And it would have put me in a position where I would actually have a lot of money out of nowhere. Maybe I could move out of my apartment that had an oil leak above the bed. But I knew I just wasn't passionate about it. Banks are where creativity goes to die. I was a creative person, and I had these side LLCs with a couple of my buddies where we did a lot of creative work. And one of the things we ended up doing was we would end up doing some media work where we would do like interviews at different conferences and stuff like that. And I had a real knack for that. And they would tell me like, brother, this is what you should be doing. And I never really thought anything of it. I think I just kind of tamped it down, but I was trying to change industries to get into like marketing. After I turned down that offer over the next...
You realize that you got charisma, you're charismatic, you're a good conversationalist.
Yeah, but I wasn't even looking at that part. I wanted to get into like marketing just to do creative work.
Okay, got you.
Over like the next 6 months leading up to the pandemic. And I had this like dumb little hobby on the side, if you will, that came out of nowhere that was like... A lot of people would come up to me and say, you need a podcast, bro. And there was one particular event that happened where a bunch of people came up afterwards and they're like, you need a podcast. And I was like, what am I going to do with a podcast? Who the hell's going to listen to me? But I was like, well, if I did it, I need to have all the right equipment and actually do it right and have the studio. So with no plan, I just started going to B&H on Saturday afternoons in the winter of 2020, where I would learn all the equipment and then go home and research it more. And I press, buy on all that equipment on like March 4th or something like that. Mind you, I'm still working on Wall Street at the time. You can imagine everything's going
at the time.
25, 26.
Yeah.
And so, I didn't have any money. I spent whatever money I had on this stuff. And then I'll never forget it. It was like the first day of quarantine, Friday, March 13th. I get the notification, like your equipment has arrived downstairs. I was like, oh my God. So I bring it up to the 5th floor. I sit it on my couch and I just sit back and I look at it. And I'm like, Julian, you've done a lot of stupid shit in your life. This is the stupidest shit you've ever done. All your new job opportunities that I was trying to apply for just dried up overnight. The world is ending. You have no money. Whatever money you did have, all $7,000 of it, you just spent on this stuff right here. Your life is at a total crossroads. What are you doing? And then I don't know if it was 30 seconds or 60 seconds. It definitely wasn't an hour, but whatever it was, I just kind of stood there and looked at it and I was like, well, I guess I got to go for it now. And that was, like I said, Friday, March 13th, 2020. And I just went balls to the walls. And then I got 2 important phone calls too in the next week. I can't remember which one was first, but first, the one I'll talk about first was my boss called me and I had told him, because I had been really getting somewhere with some new job opportunities right before the pandemic. And then obviously that went out the window. But I told him, I said, no matter what, I'm going to leave on March 31st because I'm really close to getting a job. And if I can't grab one, I'll let my lease expire. And then, you know, if I have to ride out some time, go back down to South Jersey with my parents until I get the job taken care of. He's like, okay, cool. So he calls me up and he goes, I take it all your job opportunities just dried up overnight? I said, yeah. And he goes, all right, we didn't tell anyone you're leaving the company on the 31st. Why don't you just stay? We're going back into the office. They're going to let us back into the offices probably April, May. This is when it was 2 weeks to stop the curve.
Right. Yeah.
So, he's like, you can just, we're in good shape. So you just do little things for me that I need. And then when we go back to the office, then you can leave. So you can kind of collect your check. So I'm like, well, that's amazing. So that's what I did. And then my dad called me. And again, I can't remember if it was one or the other. I feel like Larry called me first, my boss, about it. But when my dad called me, he said, whatever you do, don't re-sign your lease. Because now I'm thinking about re-signing the lease because everything kind of stopped, is what it is. And I said, why not? And he goes, they love this. This is not going to be 2 weeks. This is going to be a year. I was like, Malaka, what are you talking about? Yeah. This is not going to be a year. This ain't 2 weeks. He's like, no.
He said they what us?
They love this.
Yeah.
Like the people controlling this love this power. Yeah. This is going to be a year.
Yeah.
So I didn't re-sign my lease. I went back down to South Jersey. When I got there, I'm unloading all my shit from the U-Haul and, I take out this podcast equipment and my dad's like, what the is that? And I was like, yeah. I said, yeah, think about doing a podcast. And he was like, well, now's the time. And they had a separate back room upstairs that he let me build into like a makeshift studio. And that's how this whole thing was born. I just went completely balls to the walls.
Yeah, I just dove in head first. I mean, the timing was for that was, bad for a lot of people, but good for a lot of people. It created opportunity like this, right? You had to make a shift.
Yep.
And, some people thrived coming out of that hardship. Some people, haven't recovered yet.
That's what I'm saying, man. And I'm always careful I say that because I know that the pandemic and all the shutdowns ruined a lot of people's lives. And I'm very conscious of that. It was, for me, extremely important. Like as a moment. Right? Look, there's moments where you learn who people are. Mm-hmm. They either run into the fire or they run away from it.
Yeah.
And it's not that simple for a lot of people who lost their businesses and stuff like that. I want to be very clear. That's different. But for a guy like me who was at a real crossroads and felt like a loser, and I know that's probably not fair to say to myself because I had been doing all the right things. And I work really hard on Wall Street. I got to the point where I got a really nice offer. So it's like I was doing things, but I felt like I had really blown it to that point in my life. And then this shit happens. Suddenly I'm with trying to go get something that, shift to the industries I wanted to shift to. And I had to be like, all right, I'm in the middle of the ocean on a boat. Either I'm moving the oars here or we're going to die.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's go. And that's what I did.
And you did. Yeah. Man, I'm kind of curious as you're talking, I didn't plan on asking you this, but you and I are from two totally different worlds. I live in the South. You live in Jersey. Mm-hmm. And the pandemic was very different here than it was there. Like, I bought into the 2 weeks for the curve, and played along because I'm like, of course, right? You want to be part of the solution. But I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. Like after 2 weeks, we were like, bro, we're training. And even at first it was like, even in California, I remember like Clark Gracie, other places, we like put plastic on the windows so no one could see inside. You knocked on the back door. Somebody poked their head out. Like, come on in. It was like Fight Club. Everyone trained. And probably the most intimate contact you could have is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You're like sweating each other. Right. Yeah. But juice and friggin' sweat and blood in each other's mouths and fingers in each other's mouths and somebody's butt in your face. Like it's just gross. Jiu-jitsu is a gross sport when you're training hard. And all that time, I never stopped training. They had the most like intimate group of people. No, if anybody did get COVID, they were like, hey, by the way, let everybody know I had COVID. But people were sick for like 2 or 3 days. Just got an athletic group of people and no one died. No jiu-jitsu people died. And but then like pretty quickly, like in the South, like even the governments were just like, you guys just do what you want. Like no one really. But up here, it stayed locked down. Like what was life like in that isolation?
So there's a couple things there. First, they treated if you remember all the way back at the beginning, they didn't know how to treat the damn thing. So they were treating it all wrong. They were putting people on respirators and stuff, which was killing them.
Killing people.
And they didn't know that at the time. And secondly, none of us were virologists back then. We all became virologists within a month or two.
Everybody
and
on the internet, right?
Yeah, I wasn't aware medically at all of how viruses, I never thought about it, like how a virus works and how it spreads. But when viruses, and this is definitely oversimplifying, but just at a high level, 30,000 foot in the air view, when a virus spreads, if it's killing the hosts, it slows down to try to stop killing the host because then it has nothing to host on or parasite on.
It's amazing how virally smart it is.
Right.
It has like an intelligence to it.
It has an intelligence to it. So, of course, it's going to be the worst right at the outset. And then even just naturally, even if you're not treating it well, it will die down. And, of course, they didn't want it to die down. They wanted to keep people locked down. I will tell you, at the beginning, it was crazy, though. We all knew people who were in the ER and in the ICU. The guy who sat 5 feet to my left and on Wall Street was like a miracle story. He was in a coma on a respirator for like 70 days or something like that, and he lived. But
we have a population density here.
Yeah, in shape.
Yeah.
Guy was in shape, didn't have pre-existing conditions or anything like that. He wasn't old either. He was like 44. You know, like there were shit like that. The most in shape dude I knew got really banged up by it. And we were like, whoa, it's kind of strange. And then within a month or two, you stopped hearing about stuff like that. People would get it and they'd be all right. They would get through it. And so again, they kept moving the goalposts. And it was just very, very strange. We were the ground zero here. I was living in North Jersey. Ground zero was New York City and all that. And then that started to calm down, but they didn't want it to calm down. The whole thing was, looking back on it, was dystopian. And I was so young and retarded that like I didn't know how to think about it. But when I went to do the podcast, this is what was strange. When I moved to my parents' house, so March 31st, April 1st, to do, and was building the studio and getting into it, my experience with the pandemic was very different from everyone else's, because obviously they kept shit locked down for the next year and a half. I was bunkered away in their house back in the woods full time.
Yeah.
And my job was to have people like you come over and sit and talk with me for several hours. So it was a social job, and I didn't have people mask up when they came to the house or anything like that. So I wasn't out there. I went away from the world. I wasn't out there in the world living through this like other people were. The most I did was like drove to the grocery store or something. I didn't even do that. Really. But drove to the Wawa or went to pick someone up from the airport eventually when I was doing that, which wasn't for 2 years into it. It wasn't until 2022 when I started actually flying people in for this thing. So I remember, especially when I moved up here, late summer 2023, walking outside. And this is after restrictions had long been lifted. World's been back to normal for a while. But that's when I noticed the social toll it had taken on people. Yeah. Because I'm a sociable guy, whatever. Right. And I do have two sides of my personality. I'm either very extroverted or very introverted. There's really no middle ground. But that's what you are?
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
All right, so you get it. But I would notice people when they walk down the streets. I always go for walks. They'd look down. Yeah. Or they'd walk in a little semicircle around you. And did some of that stuff happen before the pandemic? Yeah, but not everybody. No. Not everybody. Yeah. And that still is very much that way. I mean, I'll pass people that I see all the time and they pretend they can't see you. And then it makes you uncomfortable.
The vaccine, when that came, that was pushed so hard here. I mean,
yes.
The mayor trying to get you to give him free burgers and fries to
take the airplane. Yeah. Yeah, that was another thing I never thought about that stuff. Yeah. I never thought about what that was. And then I remember as it went on, I'd be paying attention. Because again, I'm locked away from the world. Remember that. Right. But I'm on the internet, so I can see, wow, people are really flipping out about this. I'm paying attention, and I'm I think I need to rethink this whole thing. Just trusting the system or something like that. That's probably something seems off here. Something seems very wrong. And I think the data's made it very clear that something was very, very wrong
Nefarious.
there. Nefarious is a very nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, there aren't some sort of tribunals about that stuff, I think is a big mistake, because there are people within business and government who knew damn well that it was not what they were advertising it to be.
You use is interesting. You use the word they quite a bit in this, and I hear a lot of people. I use it. When you say they, who are you referring to? When you say,
wouldn't that be the $1 million question?
Who are they? Like that's pushed that wanted to use it as a weapon. If it was used as a weapon, which I believe it was, if the vaccine was used as a weapon, these are biological weapons against the people and the population, whatever the motive would be, who would be the they that would be pushing that?
My guess off the top, and this is just a total guess.
Yeah.
Before we get to the people who are pushing it, my guess would be it's a percentages game. Mm-hmm. Whatever it was with that mRNA vaccine, meaning people didn't keel over and die by the thousands when you walked out on the street, right? It wasn't like a one-shot poison shot. But they may have looked at it from up here, pulling their strings and going, well, according to our data, which they have on all of us, you know, X percentage of the population will be affected this way by it. X percentage of the population will be affected that way by it. Y percentage will be affected that way. This number of people will eventually die because of what they put in their body with this thing, or this number of people will have a reaction to it. Or, by the way, this is how we can also cause social division. There's a million different things going on.
Over long term, too, not just like shake the shot and then people have adverse effects from it 50 years from now.
They could.
Yeah.
They could. It's something I think about, because I got the earliest shots, and then I got COVID, and I'm like, this doesn't work. This is bullshit. But, you know, I don't know that there's even a limit to the number of things that they were simulating with the vaccine. Now let's get to they, because that's a very interesting time question right now. Yeah. Because now, in light of the latest Epstein files drop on January 30th, and really going through that and seeing a different side of the world, even beyond what I knew or could conceive. I keep citing this, and I'm going to keep citing it because I think he nailed it. But the whole Tucker Carlson, like Supra-Government thing, I think he's on the fucking money. When you read the emails and just zoom out and say, all right, don't get to the exact or like this exact crime or that. No. Just who's talking to who, and where do these people sit, and how are they talking about each other? It is very clear to me that the heads of state, in many cases, globally, yeah, sure, yeah, globally, the heads of industry, in a way. And I think it depends on the industry, but the heads of industry, the top of society, if you will, that's not who runs things. They're actually the third layer. And I think there's a really good argument for that. That's what Tucker's kind of laying out. And then there's two layers above them. There's the people that they work for, who are the fixer class of wealthy people who can tell them what to do. And then there's the people that they work for, who are the people who never want to be seen, don't want to be known, and they tell you how the world works. And that is really like the banker technocracy class. I think that's very clear. Now that we know,
which has been established for hundreds of thousands of years.
Sure. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like you wanted to think. I wanted to think. Being perfectly honest about this. Nah, they couldn't pull that off. Not today. That could happen in the 1700s. Like, they can't do it. They ain't like that today. They're still like that today. And this is our moment to bring it out from the shadows and be like, yo, because this, that out. No, that's not what we're doing, you know? So it's very clear that banker technocracy class, I think is what's up there, because that is what runs the world these days, money and tech.
In the Epstein files, the one chink in the armor that we've had in probably history to expose who they actually are, that third class, and why you see so much pushback to expose the Epstein files. Kind of with that, because obviously that says we don't know who they actually are. You've of all the topics you've covered in your podcast and all the things you've done, the one thing you put a lot of time into, you said since you started this, was the Epstein.
On camera, we've done it consistently, but it's been one of many things. Recently, we've really upped it, but behind the scenes, this is a case that since 2019, before I was doing the podcast, I have obsessively looked at, because it always felt at each point where we even realized it was bigger than it was, it consistently then would go up a level and feel bigger than it was. What I will say is that with the latest drop, it was the biggest step it ever took, to where it's like, what the like, we can't rule out like the craziest.
Right.
You can't rule, even if I would like to think some of that stuff didn't happen still, but you can't rule it out. The fact that you can't be like, get out of here with that. If you're talking about like cannibalism or something, it's not a 0% chance, and it's not 10% either. It's higher.
Yeah, why are people just having conversational emails like that if it's just for fun?
Dude, like, how about the what's the word? The air of superiority, that's not the word I'm looking for, but the air of complete infallibility and nonchalance with which these people would talk on their emails with each other.
Yeah.
They had no concern that not only people of any kind would see this in the future, but that they would, if someone did, an investigator, not the public.
Right.
What are you going to do about it? That's how they talk. They talk like the Supra-Government people. We're above you.
There's nothing you're going to do about it.
There's nothing you're going to do about it.
So I'll say this to, my audience knows, I'm sure I'm going to get some crossover. Your audience knows that my background is I've been kind of locked arms with President Trump since 2016. During the campaign, I got to interview him. And as one of the veterans in this veterans town hall, interviewed him on a policy topic that I want to challenge him on if he became president. He answered it correctly. The media went crazy in it. I had to go on Bill O'Reilly to defend it, and I became kind of locked in with him. Was on the VA transition team in 2016, and then went into I was a surrogate. In 2018, I became a chairman of a White House coalition for faith-based care. He did an amazing job on policy with that, so that led me to be a surrogate on the 2020 campaign, the 2024 campaign. So I've been, and on the veteran side of stuff that care in national security, feel he's done probably the most impactful president in my lifetime. I really am a champion. But the one thing I couldn't get behind with him is how he handled the Epstein files. And I think any good surrogate is going to say the things you agree with and be open and honest about the things you don't. When he said that the American people didn't move on, and if he was right here, I'd say the same thing. I just don't agree with that. Like the American people are not going to move on. We shouldn't move on. This is important. This is why we voted for him. They expose this stuff. And, the way Bondi has handled this in the congressional hearings, Patel, to say there was something and now say there was never anything. I just can't go along with that. And this release that happened, the fact that there's still redactions in it at all is appalling to me. So why do you think there's still things redacted? And things that are crimes.
George Carlin has the often cited quote that me and everyone else cites all the time. It's a big club and you ain't in it. I just want to edit it. Now it's a little club and you ain't in it. And nobody gets any credit here, to be clear. The Democrats who get to read off their statements and get a W because the person sitting across from them has been a stone cold liar, whether it be Bondi or Patel or whatever, they get no credit. I'll tell you why. Every administration has covered this up.
Everyone.
This is the most bipartisan story of my lifetime.
Yeah.
When you look at the people who are caught up in this thing, it is from the left to the right and everything in between, and none of them are really even left, right. They're a part of, one world kind of thing. And publicly they donate to this person or that person, or more likely both.
Yeah.
And so this is a moment, this is a topic that everybody can come together on. But with Trump, we've known about the guilt of the guys like Bill Clinton forever. And I'll say I've known about the guilt of all the congressmen and senators who clearly knew about this from every party, from both parties, forever, who have not done anything. But, right now Trump is in power, so a lot of the spotlight goes to him. And the fact of the matter is, I had often defended him
Yeah.
on this case. And
Same.
there was some evidence for that too. And I started to question that a year or two ago, and I really question it now.
Well, I do think the files exonerate him for crimes against children.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay.
I hope they end up doing that, but it might not matter. It actually really doesn't matter, and I'll tell you why. I would love to think the president is not a pedo, so that would be great if we can prove that it exonerates him. But if he's not, then he just oversaw openly and blatantly lied about the most vile cover-up of pedophilia at an elite level that we've ever seen in the history of the world.
And ask the world to move on.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Joe Paterno got fired within 2 days for covering up one guy. They had the stadium named after him. This is the president of the United States. Mm-hmm. And again, no credit to the people that came before him either. They can all fuck off too.
Yeah, because they could have released it anytime.
Yeah, this is not D or R. And the last guy was dead. Biden was dead when he was in there. He should have been impeached day one. Mm-hmm. So the energy stays the same on everyone, and people don't enjoy the political part of this convo. And I know obviously you have a personal relationship, and in some ways that sucks to talk about.
But I'll be honest about it, and I'll be honest about my feelings about it, because I have to. You and I, like in this position, we have to.
We have to. You have kids?
Yeah, I have kids.
Okay.
Yeah. I have kids. I get grandkids.
Yeah.
So we have to.
So you imagine them being pulled into something like this. This is just such a red line for me, man. And to see, there is not a defense attorney in America, not one, who will watch tape of Trump talking about this case over the past several months especially and tell you, that's an innocent man. Mm-hmm. Everything he does, scream, he started a war to get people off this. And it is just... It's bad, man. And to see that the people that he was protecting, because he talked to Marjorie Taylor Greene about this before they had their falling out. He's like, it's going to hit people I know. So what? I don't want to know. If people were doing these things to little kids,
the whole system's collapsed. So
why do you care if they're your friends? That's not a friend, bro. That's someone you kicked to the curb. Tribunal. Let's go. Yeah. And we find out one of the names he's covering up is Les Wexner. Are you kidding me? So, and again, every administration's done it. They can all f off. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But to see that now he's the guy who, to his credit, actually put some files out to the public. That's more than everyone else's.
Because he did sign it in. He did sign the congressional release. But it's not enough. Everything, it needs to be, if you really want to champion this thing, it's got to be complete transparency.
If you got nothing to hide, don't hide.
That's right.
You have to get in front of things, and I don't mean that from just a PR perspective. I mean that from I hope you're fucking honest too,
from doing the right
perspective.
thing.
But it went. Think about it, Chad. This went from him openly saying it on the campaign trail in 2015, 2016. You're going to have a lot of problems with this Epstein creep and his island, and Bill Clinton took a lot of flights, and then calls Bill Clinton a rapist to his face in a debate, in the second debate in 2016 against Hillary on international TV. And 10 years later, he's on camera going, I still like Bill Clinton.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame what they're doing to him.
And then it's a shame. And then Bill Clinton goes in and does testimony on the record and testifies that as far as he knows, Donald Trump had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. So suddenly these guys are friends?
Yeah.
Get the f out of here. You don't call someone a rapist on international TV and drag his name and his wife through the mud at, that business relationship he and Hillary. They should be in jail. Exactly. Yeah. And then suddenly it's like, well, now this Epstein thing's out, so we're friends again. Come on, man.
And then what, right in the middle of that, you got President Obama comes in and says, I'm all for UFO UAP disclosure. I push that. It's a big part of my life. But all of a sudden, Obama steps in and releases UFO UAPs, and then the president tasks the I'm friends with Pete. I love Pete, but President tasks Pete to investigate and release these files, and working with Congress to release these files. It's like this. Okay, here's something they wanted, and And I just, it's hard for me to believe that's not a distraction.
It's very, well, it is. I mean, suddenly I want the alien redactions too. I want the disclosure. I've been asking for that forever.
But if I have to pick what redactions I want, I'm picking the Epstein. I want these children.
Let's stay with the soup du jour right now. Let's stay with that. Let's stay with the thing that society is literally hinging on. I completely agree.
And by the way, I don't care about the Dow. I care about the Dow, but I don't care about it when we're talking about children.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And it's like, everything's a distraction for everything. And that's as old as time. They're always distracting from something that they don't want you to see. And now my alarm bells have always been up on that, but they are on a blinking 12 at all times on a 1 to 10 scale about what they're doing. And when some people I know were like celebrating, oh, look, Trump's giving us the alien files. I'm like, are you retarded?
Yeah.
Of course you're not going to get shit in whatever files he claims he's giving you right now, because this is all, he doesn't want people talking about this. And I'm like, why, Donald? Why don't you want people talking about this? If you have nothing to hide, and Trump doesn't strike me as a guy who's, I don't even mean this as a shot, but like, if he has friends that, get caught up doing some dumb shit, he doesn't strike me as the guy jumping on a grenade for him.
Right.
So why is he jumping on the grenade with this one? Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're not going to, the American people, it's kind of a message to him. The American people are not going to let it go. We're not going to move on, and we shouldn't. And he has to know that the constituent base that voted him in, we voted him in. One of the reasons we voted him in is I feel like he had a finger in the pulse of what America wanted.
Yes.
America wanted transparency. They want justice back.
Yes.
They don't want a two-tier justice system. These are the things that he promised and we voted for him. So I feel like he's either lost his finger on the pulse of what the American people want, or he's just, someone is influencing him to, whoever that second and third tier or second and first tier is, influencing him to push the American people to move on.
Yeah, I think it's a litany of things. I think it's that. I think he took a lot of money from AIPAC and organizations like that as well. When you get $100 million from Miriam Adelson, that's not free, and then she gets a seat right behind Obama and, swearing in, like, that is what it is. And people are awake to that kind of thing now. We want America to deal with America's problems. And that's what his base wanted too. And like, when I was talking to people in the build up to that election in 2024, you could feel that, because there were a lot of people that weren't even from his base who just wanted those things. And they're like, you know what? I don't even like this guy, but I'm going to vote for him. And I'm like, I fully understand why. I mean, things got crazy.
Well, if you know he's going to win, you have to be in a position if you need things to get done. And I think it's where AIPAC, and I mean, I'll just ask you straight up, because you seem to have a good pulse on this. I mean, does AIPAC and Israel have more influence over the White House than the American people?
Right now?
Right
yes.
Now. Yeah.
Absolutely. The evidence shows that way. Yeah. Listen,
we are the extension of the Israeli government.
The IRGC and the Iranian government can fuck off all the way to hell. These are terrible people who've done awful things to their people. They ran a revolution in 1979 on a lie, and then held an iron grip over their people, and to this day imprison and torture people,
including American citizens.
And if they all died tomorrow, there would not be a single tear shed from me. I didn't shed a tear for Khamenei getting his ass whacked the other day at all. Yeah. I would love, and I've said this forever, I would love to see the Iranian people rise up and overthrow their government. That's how it has to happen, though. You are a veteran. You've been over there. You've seen what happens when we go in and we try to bomb the place out and rebuild a government our way, which doesn't work out because you have morons in suits back in DC handling things. And the fact of the matter is, whether it's convenient or not, the Iranian government has proven time and time again that while they are very annoying and they do some stupid shit, like try to send undercover people to America to kidnap Massie Alinejad because they don't like what she says about them, they pose no threat to America. No threat. There is some financial ties there. But when you're talking oil, and if we really got into the weeds and how that pertains to China and particularly in Russia as well, for sure, there's that. But they're not sending any bombs here. They were not close to getting a nuke. If you look at like the Stuxnet hacks that we did to them in 2012, 2013, it's hilarious. It reads like a comedy movie. Read Andy Greenberg's book where he discusses that. He put that in his book Sandworm. And then there's another longer book by another author that goes through it. I forget what her name is, but goes through the whole thing. Like it reads like a comedy movie, what we were able to do to them from the NSA to hack their centrifuges and blow them up right in front of their face. Like they pose no threat to America. Yes, they do pose a threat to Israel. That's true. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm not sending our military over there to fight your wars again and again and again and again. And this is where I run into a problem, though, with everyone on this particular topic when it pertains to the Middle East, but particularly Israel. You have two camps. You have the camps of like radical Zionists, and then you have the camps of like destroy Israel. We think it's the worst country on earth. The radical Zionists will just direct all your attention to Iran, Qatar, and China and say, well, aren't you worried about all that? And I say, yes. And then they look at me like I have 10 heads because I'm willing to criticize Israel. They're like, that just doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, yes, I'm worried. I'm worried about all that, particularly China. Okay? I'm not necessarily worried tomorrow about Iran or Qatar or something like that, but like, am I worried about how they operate for Iran in particular? Am I worried about how they operate on their people? Sure, not my problem. China is. And they're like, oh, wow, like, cool. And then I talk to the people who are like anti-Zionists, and they're like, well, aren't you worried about all the shit Israel does to us and the AIPAC and the control? I said, yes, huge problem. They're dragging us into endless wars, huge problem, give them the fuck out. But I'm worried about China and all that too. And they're like, wait, what? How can you be? It's everyone who's a problem for this place right here. Everyone. And they're problems in different ways. The one that I think pisses people off about Israel is they make all the politicians do the dance and whatever and say, this is our greatest ally. Israel has a right to defend itself, you know? And then they're doing things that are not necessarily what an ally would do. Mm-hmm. Allies don't drag allies into a endless war again. You know, and when I had John Kiriakou in here the week before Iran broke out, he obviously reported it on my show that the decision had been made. He ended up being 3 days early. He said it was going to be Monday or Tuesday, and ended up being Friday night. He was 100% right. Yeah. And I got a call from another source the next night saying it's not going to be Monday or Tuesday, but the shit he's saying is right. Yeah. I wanted him to be wrong so bad, but I knew he wouldn't be. Mm-hmm. I knew it. I knew he wouldn't be because walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's a duck. And the difference between 2026 attack in Iran and 2003 attack in Iraq is 2003, there was still no social media. Okay. All of our guys, when you were serving and things like that, first of all, I always say this, it is never the soldier's fault for what suits decide to do.
These men and women that are out there right now, they're doing their job. What they raised their hand to do. They're doing their job, and they're doing it well. Yep. And everybody, needs to be praying for them because it's crazy what they're. I mean,
damn right.
They're not just facing Iranian technology; they're facing Chinese technology, and everybody else simply. It's
never their fault, and I'm so crystal clear on that. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes when people fight about this on Twitter, they forget about the real lives that are out there in the middle of this thing. They don't make these decisions. Yeah. Point being,
even
Bill,
Pete's a bro of mine. Like he's in charge of Secretary of War. I mean, he gets tasked to do that job. He's gonna do it well.
Yeah, I would imagine he ain't making the final order here. I don't imagine. I know that's the case, but particularly the soldiers. I can have political differences with other guys in government, but particularly the people out there on the front lines fighting it, it's not their fault. But the difference between 2003 in Iraq and 2006 in Iran is that the 2026 version of the U.S. military, they all have social media too. They all have the internet too. They know damn well that we are doing something that is not for us right now. And I think that's a big problem for morale. And the fact that, it's just so brazen that like it's going to take a few weeks sounds a lot like 2 weeks to stop the curve. Let me tell you something, man. And I don't need to tell you. You could lecture me a lot more on this than I could on you. Iran ain't Venezuela, pal. You know what I mean? Like when I'm hearing them talk about this, I'm like, buddy, this is not a country of 30 million people in South America where there aren't religious, social, holy, cultural wars. This is a 92 million person Middle Eastern nation smack dab in the middle of the world's largest conflict across all different kinds of special interests that exist there on a range from Iran to Saudi Arabia to Israel to the UAE. Like, there is so much going on there, and then don't even get me started on China and even Russia a little bit. It's like, you think you're just going to waltz in there? Oh, you took out Khamenei? That's awesome. Mm-hmm. They got a whole military behind that, and they're pissed. And it's funny, when you get me to the point where I have to logically defend someone in the current Iranian government, you have, like, there was a guy, I don't even remember who it was, someone high up in the Iranian government getting interviewed on like ABC the other day while all this bombing's breaking out and Iran's bombing back. They just killed Khamenei. Mm-hmm. And they're like, sir, why don't you just stop the bombing? And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And they go, well, you could just stop the bombing right now. He's like, you bombed us. What do you want us to do? We have to bomb back.
Well, I think a lot of those things are probably preset triggers, right? When all the U.S. bases it was simultaneous. It was probably a push button, like in case of emergency. That's what's going to happen. We knew that, right? We knew that as soon as we launched, they're going to launch into every place in the U.S. military base, and it did. Yeah. And so we have to know that's coming. I really go back to the motivation because when I look at it, I look at it from a counterintelligence standpoint. I do believe, not to completely disagree with what you said, but Iran has been the number one funder of terrorism. So we've seen terrorism against, maybe not here on U.S. soil, maybe not, but we've seen against U.S. military all around the world.
That is true.
And so, but that's not a reason to bomb the nation over that. There's a counterterrorism effort that takes place, and we've been doing that, right?
Feels like we've had a decent lid on that, though.
I think we have. I agree with you. I think
they're funding it. That's very clear. You're 1,000% right about that, and people like to ignore that, so it's an important point. But we've had, from a, I don't know, precautionary standpoint, a pretty good record.
I feel like we have. At some point, you say, well, we would cut the head off the snake, but there's lots of ways to do that. And sanctioning has been one. We've been laxed on the sanctioning up until now. But
well, actually, can I cut in there?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
This is what's really interesting. And I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, so I want to keep this high level so I don't mess this up. I want to make sure the information's correct. And if people are in the comments right now and can provide more context, definitely do that because we don't have Deef here today. But we upped sanctions. Scott Bessent went and bragged about upping sanctions on, basically, I'm going to call it, to simplify it, the currency wars.
Right.
This is a few months ago. And he laughed about it. And he talked about how he was basically going to reduce the Iranians' currency to zero, which was going to cause massive internal strife, joblessness, inflation through the roof, and rebellion against the regime, which then the regime is very bad. So they do bad things,
right? Which
would then force the regime, who are not good people and don't care about human lives, to kill their own people. And it's like, yes, they deserve a ton of blame of that because they did it. But who lit the match? And why are you laughing about that at a Davos meeting?
Yeah.
That's up. And that's the thing. Chad, one thing I really don't like to do is pretend the world is this simple place or whatever, and that I got all the answers. Man, I'm a podcaster. I sit in a seat that doesn't even have an armchair on it. You know what I mean? But like, we just don't seem to learn our lessons with how to handle these things. We want to just rub our finger in the wound because it feels good. It feels good to rub our finger in the wound with Vladimir Putin, regardless of what that's going to force him to do. He's a bad guy. I don't like him. He's a dictator. He kills his own people when they go against him. I don't like any of that. But that's the reality. He's in charge of that country. So you have to know what you're dealing with. And it's not to be like, oh, let's go Munich Agreement with Hitler. That's not what I'm saying. But you also have to know who's not Hitler.
Right.
Because Hitler himself, by the way, wouldn't have been Hitler if Germany wasn't the fastest growing GDP with the greatest technology in the world. Okay? Russia, for example, has a GDP the size of Italy. No offense. They're not like that.
That's what it is, yeah.
It is what it is, right? So you can deal with the devil you know and hate it, but get to a better solution, or you can feel good and react with anger and just punch the devil over and over again and get a horrible result for many more people, but you'll feel better about it at home because you feel like a tough guy. It's a very hard thing because human nature says punch them.
Right.
But like this is what we do over and over again. And we did it with Iran over and over again too. And it's like you have to understand it's on the people.
Right.
And I don't say that lightly or meanly.
Well, they were doing it too.
They were trying.
They were trying. So, like what I was saying was like the motivation is everything. Like if that wasn't our motivation, what do you speculate the motivation was? I mean, there's lots of theories out there. Is it geographical control of that region? Is it Israel's pushing us to fight their war? Is it we just got this Venezuelan crude oil, now we need the oil from Iran? Like that kind of brings puts America in a really good petro financial situation if we have control of both that heavy crude in Venezuela and the oil in Iran. Like what do you think the motivation is? You speculate.
I think it's all that.
All that.
I think it's all that. I think the war, because war is politically the most unpopular thing you can do at any time, but particularly right now in America, we are as isolationist as the most isolationist we've been since the mid-late 30s.
Well, did we vote America first? I kind of voted for America first. I did.
Right. And I say that thinking about the isolationism a lot of people felt during the second half of Vietnam and stuff like that. I think you even really have to go back to the 30s to see how isolationist people are on both sides of the spectrum in different ways. For Trump to do it, there has to be serious influence there. And that influence comes from, be it foreign government influence or the influence of wanting to distract from things that are not good for him. And I think that those are logically really what it is. And then, yes, do you get, if you're looking at it empirically, like, I don't know if that's a real word for what I'm saying, but like from an imperialism standpoint, yes, they got a lot of oil. And yeah, very interesting, the Venezuela timing now. To open those doors back up ahead of doing something like this. It's a very, it's like, well, because you see Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz right now. Hormuz, I never know how to say it. And now global oil trade's being thrown off the wheels. We'll see how that turns out. But like, there's now a back door to being able to tap into Venezuela's oil, I guess, forming with some of the multinationals, our companies and stuff like that. I got to look into that more, but like that seems like pretty interesting timing to tap into the world's biggest oil reserves with that January 2nd hit.
Yeah. Hey guys, Chad Robichaux here, former Marine, humanitarian, and host of The Resilience Show, and I want to talk to you about Goldco. I do not like to promote anything that I'm not a personal user of, and one of the things I'm really into and have been for a while is just preparing for anything that could go wrong, from natural disasters to security threats, to the grid going down and financial instabilities, particularly in our financial markets. And so a long time ago, I made the decision to invest in precious metals, mainly gold and silver, because to have those tangible assets on hand makes you prepared and makes you resilient. And that's what the Resilience Show is all about, informing, educating, and equipping people to be resilient. And I partnered with the #1 precious metals company in the industry because I want to bring the right people not only to my own family dynamic, but make them available to you. If you're looking for gold and silver tangible on hand, then they're the place to go to. They have become an incredible partner, and they have special bonus offers that you can find if you go to chadlikesgold.com. You could get, if you buy with cash, you get 10% extra, a free gold or silver. You get your own safe at your house. For larger orders, you get a free home safe. There's tons of additional things you can get. So get equipped, be prepared, be resilient by going to chadlikesgold.com and get your tangible gold and silver today. Yeah, so slipping back into, I don't want to even say slipping back into Epstein. Yeah. So, moving back into the Epstein thing. I mean, I want to ask a few like
Sure.
just really appointed, like opinionated questions. Like, one, who do you think Jeffrey Epstein was?
Who he was?
Or was or is? I want to say. I'll say is because that goes to my second question. I'll turn it around. Before I ask you who he is, I want to give you my opinion, and you can jump in. I think Jeffrey Epstein, I'll just say for the record, I've said a couple of times, like I believe with 100% certainty he's still alive. Like I would bet everything on the fact that he's still alive. Because I've been in that world, that intelligence world for most of my life, and I understand espionage and extortion, and a guy like that who has done what he's done doesn't have a kill trigger. And it's because we haven't seen a kill trigger executed where everything was released. To me, that means he's still alive. And the camera's going out of the jail. All the evidence after that's I don't need any evidence to believe that, just because of who he is, I believe that. But now you throw the video, the camera's going down in the jail, statements to saying that a transport truck came. All that stuff, I believe, is still alive. So with that, do you think he's dead? Do you think he killed himself? Do you think the government killed him? Do you think he's still alive?
Yeah, so I've never thought he killed himself. This is a very prescient question for you to be asking right now.
Yeah.
I'll explain why, but I never thought he killed himself. I always had to journalistically say, yeah, it was a 0.1% chance or 0.5% chance. I always had to talk about it as a possibility, but the evidence is just mounted that he was killed. What I will say, I was telling you a bit off camera, but I'm not allowed to say this yet on camera because I filmed a TV show this past weekend. And what I will say is that it rocked my world.
Mm-hmm.
And if I were a betting man, I'm not 100% like you, but if I were a betting man, I would say he's still alive. And I hate that I got a blue balls people with some of the evidence there, but let's just put it this way. His prison cell is not what was drawn on the schematics.
Mm-hmm.
We know that. The DOJ, in their final reports, used pictures of different cells than what were his. And yeah, even before you get to the truck waiting to take him away and stuff like that, just the process on the inside, it actually wasn't hard. And he was drawing up escape plans. We have it from his cell.
Not suicide plans.
Not suicide plans.
Yeah.
Escape plans. We have it from his cell. It says like jet. I mean, it's written down like a mad scientist, like jet.
Yeah.
Like he circled the word jet, and then there was some other things I forget. I don't have it in front of me, but it's written down like a mad scientist genius writing down like clutters of notes and stuff. And yeah, there's some other things I want to say right now that I can't say yet, but
if you or I were escaping from a prison cell, we probably wouldn't have a jet. We'd like digging a tunnel, like right.
We wouldn't be thinking about a jet in any way.
Yeah,
but yeah, if I were a betting man, I'd say he's still alive. Yeah. I actually can't believe I'm saying that because I'm still processing what I saw. People are gonna see.
Well, I know you can't say everything you saw, but you did see all that you know of the government documents that has not been made
every single thing,
yeah,
including everything that was made public. I think we saw everything that was in any way publicized. And by the way, when you cross-reference them all together, one redacts something that the other doesn't. One says something that the other doesn't. One thing fucks up this that the other does. It is such incompetency on a cover-up. But yeah, I is he in Tel Aviv?
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't tell you where, but I think I'm leaning towards agreeing with you.
If he is still alive, who do you think he was? And how's he fit in that spectrum you thought of those three tiers?
Yep. So he's the middle tier. He's the tier between the quote unquote heads of state, head of industry, and then the people that run the world. And Jeffrey Epstein's a fixer. He's an intelligence peddler and a fixer. Dave Smith put out a tweet that is really, really interesting. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's an amazing tweet because it's a necessary tweet to make us rethink. And based on the new information we have, what he said is, I always thought Jeffrey Epstein worked for Mossad, but now I feel like Mossad worked for Jeffrey Epstein. I think the truth is in between those two. I think it was more of a partnership than like he was an employee, but that gets a little complicated to talk about. But he definitely worked with CIA as well. I think that is inarguable at this point. And I've argued that for a long time, but even like the timing of when I thought that might have happened, I've changed on that because I think the evidence shows that relationship goes back farther than we thought. It can go back to the early 80s. And
which, by the way, not to get our government off the hook on that, I will say that we oftentimes use bad actors and control them and to our benefit. So
of course,
in and itself sounds horrible, but our government has done that for a long time for the safety and security of America. So
but how bad?
But how
Chad,
bad, right?
That's,
yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. It's like, what
are we
willing to go to?
Yeah, I agree.
To do
things. There's a line.
And I do think, not to be one of these like bleeding hearts or whatever, but there has to be a point where you're like, we're Americans. We don't do that.
We're the good guys. Like, we should be the good guys.
We should be the good guys.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
Yeah.
We don't condone that. But someone puts their math equation of pros and cons on a sheet of paper in their office and then throws it out, so it's never on the record, and says, it's terrible, but we can get a lot from this. And they go, okay, we'll do it. And
that becomes such a slippery slope to that first statement of, or we're the good guys.
That's right. It's a definition of the worst kind of slippery slope.
Do you see that new movie, The Rip?
No.
It's all the guys they're in Miami, but I think of Ben Affleck and Matt Damon being up here. Where they're from,
they're from Boston.
Okay,
yeah.
But the movie it's really good. And the movies they're undercover like in a Vikes unit, and they go for cash, and so they're always tempted because they go recover cash. And Matt Damon's character has these initials on both hands. It says AWGG, or we the good guys. That might have it wrong. Or we the good guys, right? Yeah. And like just remind him, like in this, and that's like asking himself, like, are we the good guys? Like constantly, and this side has the initials for we are and always will be.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool when you read it. It just did such a beautiful job in the movie of how you described that. And it's like, I think everybody in jobs like that, you have a threshold to decide. Always like, are we the good guys? I mean, it's in combat. Because you're out there, have your buddies getting killed and you're out there slaying bad guys, and your behavior. There's one way to do the job professionally, and there's one way to do a job with vengeance and hate and stuff in your heart. And you always have to ask yourself, that's the thing, we're the good guys. I love that. That's right. As other hand, we are and always will be.
That's the thing though, man. I think about good and evil a lot. I've always thought about what that is, in the sense that it's very clear when you look at the progress of humanity over time, good wins out. We don't draw and quarter someone for stealing a nickel today, like the king would have ordered in 200, year 200 or what, you know what I mean? Like humanity progresses, and we have better understandings of each other and things like that. And we also, with technology and connection, have such a microscope on being able to find all the places where we don't have that, because we're so hyper aware of it, if you understand what I mean. That said, the unfortunate truth is that throughout history, in the short term, the shortest term, the day to day, if you will, evil tends to beat good. And here's what I mean by that. If I have 100 people in a room and 99 of them are good people and one person's evil, evil can win a high percentage of the time. Okay? If I have 100 people in a room and 99 of them are evil and one of them is good, that good shouldn't even walk into the room. It's got no prayer. He's dead before he walks into the room.
Yeah.
Meaning the surreptitiousness, the stealthiness, the sneakiness, the backhandedness of evil can
be viral.
Can always find a way to slither in and win. And I think in America, we have seen that on some micro scales consistently especially over the last 8 decades, where, as an example, we blew the head off of a sitting president. I say we. There were probably, I'm going to use round numbers, if 100,000 people were working at CIA and the Pentagon, maybe there's 30 that knew that was going to happen. Maybe. And that's including Alan Dulles, who technically wasn't working there at that time.
And you're talking about Jeff.
You know? Right. And so what does that say about the other 99,970? Does that mean they're all bad and they're not trying to be the good guys? Well, some of them probably suck. And then other ones probably got into the role and actually want to do their job and want to be the good guy. Doesn't mean they always make the right decision, but like that's the name of the game. The odor of the carcass is only as much as, you know, the blown off head starts with. You know what I mean?
It's really easy to say that the FBI is such a great example, because I know I have a lot of friends that are in FBI and just, you know, amazing patriots who love our country and are doing it for the right reasons. But as an institution, I believe the FBI is a failed institution.
Right now, it definitely is. Yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah,
and it's been that way for a while. And I definitely don't know as many people as you do, but the few people I do know, I would say the same thing about, like really good people who, by the way, left the FBI because they felt rotted at the top. You know what I mean? So it's really tough for good to win in the short term. But that's why when all these cans that have been kicked down the curve for so long, those chickens now are at a moment where they can come home to roost. We got to make sure we make those motherfuckers roost. Yeah. Because this is where we have a great opportunity. And this is not a popular thing to say, but this is how I've been putting it because I think it's an important thing to say. Imagine that our bureaucracy, our American civilization, were this beautiful 1,000,000-room mansion that's historic. I'm going to make things up right now. It's historic. It goes back to ancient Rome or something like that, which obviously we don't have stuff like that, but like let's say it did. And it's on the most beautiful giant plot of land you've ever seen in your life. And you walk up to it and you go, oh, a bunch of rooms in the house are completely overcome with asbestos, cockroaches, termites, and insert 5 other things right here. It's a giant task to look at that house and go, God damn it, am I really going to go room to room and figure out which ones I got to burn the fuck out to then have to rebuild? Or, yeah, you know what? It's just rotted. Let me just burn the whole thing. I know it's historical. We'll find something else that's historical. I'll burn the whole thing down because it's easy. That's the easy response, and that's what people want to do. They want to throw all the babies out with the bathwater. Yeah, and burn the whole thing down. I want to use this opportunity to do the much more time-consuming, much more difficult, much harder thing to do that is better for the long-term preservation of like America and what it's supposed to be about. And that is, I want to put on my hazmat suit along with hopefully a lot of other people, because it can't just be me. Yeah. And go room to room and flame out the rooms that are filled with all that, preserve all the rooms that weren't, and rebuild the rooms that we flame out. And it's going to be hard and it's going to take a long time. And cynically, I'm not so sure that it'll happen. But that's what I'd like to see.
You say cynically, you're not so sure it'll happen. What do you think, or just kind of focused on Epstein, what do you think is going to happen? Like, would you think that they're going to get away with it? They're going to move on? Or you think, you got guys like Massie, Connie, I mean, there's a lot, it's a bipartisan effort. Yes. It was a bipartisan problem. Now it's a bipartisan kind of combined solution. Some people had the poor motivation, right? They're doing it just to go after Trump. Who cares? Like it's a bipartisan effort. Do you think that we just move on, or and this still goes away, or do you think, and they get away with it? Or do you think this is going to come to a head and they have to answer for it? Clintons aren't going to jail, in my opinion.
Probably not. The cynic in me says no one goes to jail, and eventually it'll go away because the volume of information required to truly understand this is something that people who aren't on Twitter aren't willing to take the time to do, no matter how bad it sounds. Mm-hmm. You also have propaganda happening all the time where, networks won't cover this, and enough people will be la 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 la. They don't want to know.
Yeah, God bless this old lady that was taken from her house, but that drowned out in the media over the Epstein files. I don't know if you remember.
Sure, I don't think it even drowned out anything. That would require them to be swimming at the start. I don't think they were swimming, but
Yeah.
you know, I'm gonna do my little teeny tiny part. I ain't letting this shit go. I never have, and now I've really ramped it up. But like my buddy Tommy G has a great quote that I cite. It feels like every episode I ever do, where he talks about, you know, I can't boil the ocean, but I can boil my pot. That's how he says it. And and that's exactly what it is. I can't boil the ocean. I'm not going to sit here and change the world from this seat right here and be the guy that it's not going to happen. That's not how the world works. But if enough people from all different walks of life do their part to not let this go away, then maybe something can actually happen. And I am one of those people. I'd like to see 100% of what I want to happen.
Sure.
And I'd be very disappointed with anything less. But I won't take my ball and go home and just accept 0 if there's a chance that I can get 10%. If there's a chance that I could get 20%. Because it's something.
Yeah.
And something's better than nothing, even if it doesn't go down very good when you know, you eat that entree. But I see the way that they manipulate people and make things go away or create a new crisis. We are watching it unfold right now before our eyes, a war of choice against an enemy for sure, but one that poses no real threat to us to have to declare war, you know, and the show goes on. And you could, I don't know. I'm not making a ton of sense on this, Chad, because I'm thinking about it a lot. And I think my mind's in a lot of directions, but yes, I'm an optimist, but with a story like this and who it implicates, it is hard not to be cynical and assume that nothing will happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I want to see. I think America and myself all believe, not even believe, we know there's a two-tier justice system in this country, and we've lost confidence in the American judicial process, especially at the federal level. And I think it sounds horrible to say, but we want a pound of flesh. We want to see someone held accountable for these actions at that other tier, right?
Yeah.
That the Clintons or whoever, like, and I think what that would do for America is not just be redemptive through a sense of vengefulness. I think what it would do for America is restore trust in that system. I think trust could be earned back pretty quickly with something like that if we actually seen, you know, justice actually take place. And I
see what you're
to see that'll actually happen.
I see what you're saying. I might disagree on that point, though. I think, what's the old quote? Reputation takes years to build and 1 second to lose.
Yeah.
I think that the trust has been so broken that it would take much more than seeing a few pounds of flesh for people to trust again. I think retrusting the system is going to be a generational thing.
Yeah.
But I see the greater point of what you're making, I agree with, in the sense that in order for people to even try to start to heal, they have to know that some sort of result came from this. But again, that also requires an informed populace. And when I have smart people that I know calling me up who don't know dick about this case, doesn't give me a lot of hope.
Yeah. They've already made their opinion. It doesn't matter how much evidence you show them. They
don't want to know. And then I'm appreciative of, there's more now who do want to know. Yeah. And I'm appreciative of that. And that's great. But like, talking to my dad about this, really smart guy. He loves kids. He thinks it's reprehensible. But he's never gone through the case at length, and it's just not worth his time.
Yeah.
And that's like, I get it. He's got a lot of other things going on in his life. That's the thing. And I'd say that about a lot of other people too. But God, there's got to be something that sets your hair on fire at some point.
I can't understand. Like, if you just say pause from the politics, like you said, this isn't a D or R issue. Like, just pause from all of it and put yourself in the mind of a 10-year-old little boy, little girl on that island, away from anyone that cares about you, anyone that's gonna protect you.
That's
Get
right.
a room full of adults around you, laughing, having fun, either torturing you or scaring you or sexually assaulting you over and over and over again, and there's nowhere to escape. There's no one ever to come to get you. Imagine like being a child being that terrified and no one's coming to get them. And,
That's right.
And we know that, and we're not gonna bring it to account.
That's right. And
It's just not okay.
I think most people need to hear it that way too. I think most people never get to hear it that way from someone like you who knows what's going on. And I probably should do a better job of painting a visual like that with some of those people.
The child just praying. Like, I mean, I'm a strong person of faith, and I imagine, when people are in those positions, whether they are or not, they tend to, lean on when there's no physical like hope around you. You tend to lean on what I believe to be our spiritual creator, God, and I just imagine them praying, someone somewhere,
please help.
Hey, please help.
Yep.
Come get me. Come stand for me. How could we not?
Well, there's people who I think also assume like, well, he's dead now, and he did all this, and a lot of these other people, they're going to be on their way out, so it's fine. We got it. Whatever.
Even if
it's like
dead,
it's like, brother,
that
you think he's the only one?
Yeah, exactly. Even if he was that, which I don't think he is. Even if he was, that effort that existed for a reason. It's not done. It's not
That's
over.
right.
It's still happening as we sit here right now. There's a child somewhere in that situation who's being exploited, tortured, terrified. That's have that prayer going out right now, praying for guys like you to have the courage to get behind that microphone and expose it, and praying for people and the most powerful people in the world to stand up against it, to not cover it up, and to expose it and to cut it out.
I think it's amazing and a real point of optimism to see you also really going deep into this, because the fact of the matter is everyone's at the middle of the story, including the president who you've been a surrogate for before. Yeah. I think that's a really brave thing, and I think that's fucking awesome. And if you can do that, what is everyone else's excuse? Yeah,
exactly. I mean, look, I hope they still let me work with the administration, because I think the administration is doing good things. I think the president's doing great things. I'm still back him, and I still back J.D. Vance. Pete Hegseth. They're doing great things for the country, and I still hope they allow me to be part of it. But I'm not gonna be silent on stuff like this. Honestly, I think that's what should be expected of a true like surrogate because if I like as a surrogate of any political candidate, if I 100% back everything they say, then why would you trust me on my opinion?
Right.
On the things that I do that I am behind, if I'm just gonna say whatever.
Sometimes I think that's the expectation from any politician, though, and that's the tough thing, because you see that. We in the last administration, we watch beyond just within their own circles. We watch like censorship just spread like wildfire across society, and the things that they did, they should be thrown in jail. For that stuff. And actually, maybe not even Biden because he wasn't alive, but everyone else, whoever was running the country, including the vice president, who definitely wasn't running the country, but like they should probably go to trial for some of the things they did to just violate the First Amendment. Yeah. But when you see the same type of loyalty, 100% or nothing patterns, it doesn't matter what party it is. And it is, bro, when you lose Marjorie Taylor Greene like that.
Well, look, I just interviewed Eli Crane, who's very close to the president, Congressman Burleson, and they said the same thing. They're like, hey, look, I support the president, but I can't get behind him on this with the Epstein stuff. And even during the campaign, I'm huge. I'm probably on the extreme end of abortion. I'm like an abolitionist, so I'm like totally pro-life. Like I believe life at conception. You protect that child, even if I gave you the rapes and incest, that's like less than 1%. So like the other 99%, can we, protect? So I'm like really an abolitionist when it comes to pro-life. And I know that's the extreme end. And I remember during the campaign, I'm getting asked about the president, and I'm like, we don't have a pro-life candidate. Obviously, or Vice President Harris wasn't a pro-life, and J.D. Vance and President Trump were not pro-life candidates. Because their policy doesn't change the amount of kids that would be killed in the womb, whether it's actually third trimester abortion or the abortion pill. The amount of deaths still is the same. So for me, I felt like, and I spoke about that on the campaign, and some people from the campaign would get upset with me, like, "What are you saying that for?" I'm like, well, if I could stand against that and challenge the president to come more in line with what my beliefs are, because by the way, I'm still a constituent and a voter. If I could push them to go more that way, then when I speak about national security and all the great things he's doing in national security and veterans care, it has more clout because they know I'm not just going to say whatever. And I felt like I was a better surrogate because of that. And people, because there's going to be integrity in what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so that was an example of things that even during the campaign that I pushed back on. I was balanced.
Well, that's good. And they let you stick around.
Let me stick around.
That's good.
So.
Maybe it's just a hot button issue like this goes a little far with them, but like you said, it's something everyone, when you're talking about like the Epstein case and the types of victims we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
It's something everyone should be able to get behind, regardless of politics.
I am happy to say that a lot of my friends that are in Congress have taken the same position as I have, while they're friends with the president, while they support the president. So hopefully he hears it.
Why, in your view, does he go and so viciously attack a staunch Republican like Thomas Massie, who's voted with Republicans 91% of the time, and I'm quoting him here, with the exception of funding foreign wars, increasing our debt, and protecting pedophiles? Those are the only three that he has voted against them on bills on. Why is Trump setting up super PACs and then backing Israeli-backed super PACs to get that guy out of office?
Because he's had the courage to stand against the president on this Epstein thing specifically, and I think he poses a threat, maybe not to President Trump, but to whoever's pushing President Trump and influencing President Trump. And so President Trump's, he's in a position, he thinks he's not a politician, right? He's a business guy, and now he's thrust in the political world. There's tons of influence that comes. There's all the PACs that put him that allow him to be in the White House seat, right? So he has so many influential voices. And while he's done a lot of things great, the one thing that I think President Trump hasn't done well at all since 2016 until now is surrounding himself with the right people. He consistently surrounds himself with the wrong people, and he listens to people that tells him whatever he wants to hear. Like, I know so many guys that should be in positions, cabinet positions around him, that would make him a rock star, that he's not allowed in because of people that are politically connected and speak in his ear and tell him whatever he wants to hear and not what he needs to hear. And that's for any man, president, everyday dad, friend. Like, if you're in a position of influence, which we all are, every man is, you need people around you that's not going to tell you what you want to hear. You need people around you that's going to tell you what you need to hear. That's and right. President Trump surrounds himself with people that tell him what he wants to hear. And that's the people that tell him what he needs to hear are the people that get shunned out. I could think of like Eli Crane and Corey Mills when Butler, Pennsylvania happened. Those guys should have been on the assassination committee.
Yeah, Crane went right out there and was like investigating it from the roof. Yeah,
and they had the most experience, but they were not allowed to be on, right? Because it's all about. And so this is where I think President Trump has messed up. I actually don't pray that he doesn't hear this. I pray he hears this, because he needs to hear this. He is continually allowed himself to be surrounded by people who have taken advantage of his kindness, because he loves to have relationships, and people have exploited that and taken advantage of him. And all the bad positions I think he finds himself in is because he's chosen the wrong people. And he continues to do that. And man, there are leeches. And he calls it what it is. It's a swamp. I think it's actually a sewer, because as Burchett just said, I interviewed him this week. Burchett just said, it's not a swamp, it's a sewer, because a swamp actually drains. But man, he's in that place, and I think he's a smart guy. He's a kind of shrewd business guy and smart, but he allows people to to get in close to him that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And
Why does Howard Lutnick still have a job?
he shouldn't. He shouldn't. He should be gone.
It's insane.
He should be gone. I mean, honestly, I think he messed up. What he should have got rid of Pam Bondi the first day of those hearings. Should have fired her on the spot.
Yeah.
I mean, she
ain't the brightest bulb.
I mean, she should have got rid of her a long time ago. But after those hearings, it should have been like, hey, like either resign or you're gone. Like, I mean,
Yeah. And he's got one eye hunting, one eye fishing, running the FBI.
yeah. I mean,
It's like,
and look,
What are we doing?
I admit when I made mistakes. Like, and I petitioned for that guy to be the director of the FBI. I thought, man, he's the right, because he did such a good job at in the military as you know. And as a lawyer, he did such a good job and he had such a good reputation. And, you know, I don't know if he's a good guy or not. I know right now, I believe he's lied to the American people when it comes to Epstein files. I just truly believe that. And yeah.
Let me not defend him for a second. Let me play devil's advocate though. Because I do wonder this sometimes. Because I think Kash Patel's just been completely incompetent in every facet of his job. So it's really, this is just an extra cherry on top, whether or not it's there or not. But I gotta think he's got zero say.
I agree
in this
I agree.
situation.
Yeah. Do you think he knows like information and is not sharing it, or do you think he?
Yeah, I think where it gets egregious is when he and Dan Bongino go and do like a podcast together to talk about all the hard work that they did together for the American people, and you know, pretend that you know he's in charge of the Federal Bureau of Tweeting, you know, and social media rather than of investigation. I don't think he helps himself at all. I think he makes poor PR decision after poor PR decision. But I gotta think that something like this, we talked about the Supra-Government, bro, that the appointed head of the FBI, he ain't on the top bureaucracy. He's down here.
Yeah.
He's reporting to the guy who's 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 reporting to maybe the guy.
And I hope, because I've always loved Dan Bongino, I hope he left because he just couldn't tolerate.
I mean, but look at how he's talking since he got back, man. It is cringe to a T.
I agree.
It's cringe to a T, and it's like, did they get to him? What day? I do wonder about that day, like if it happens, where the guy, it can't be as stereotypical all the time as like the guy shows up with a loaded gun and holds it to your head. But I wonder about that day, if you think of those movie scenes where someone walks in and they're just having a regular old conversation with, you know, the character in the movie. And then at some point in the conversation, they say something
like
without saying you're going to do the right thing. Yeah. But it's what's understood doesn't need to be explained, and you just see the ice go in the character's face and be like, "Oh,
we own you."
Almost like, and this one was a little more obvious, but like you think about the scene in Godfather 2 where Tom Hagen, rest in peace, Robert Duvall, goes and visits Frank Pentangeli after the testimony fiasco. He goes and visits him at the, I don't know, whatever that is, like a private prison or something like that. And he starts talking about in ancient Rome how when one of the consuls made a decision against the empire or something about that, he'd be given the opportunity to, you know, have his families be taken care of.
Right.
By doing the right thing.
The right thing.
And Pentangeli's like, so he'd go in the shower, in the bath, and he'd open up his arms and follow me. And then he kills himself.
Right.
Spoiler alert.
Because for his family.
Yeah. And it's like, I wonder about those days where someone with blackmail or with some sort of offer that says like you're gonna have to do the right thing comes and you bring them in for coffee, and then when they leave, your whole life is different. I wonder about that.
Because one thing I will say, and I could be wrong, but I'll say this: I believe, and I include Kash Patel. I believe Kash Patel and Dan Bongino went into those positions as men of integrity, who went in there as patriots and wanting to do the right thing.
I would like to think so.
That. Yeah.
Sure. I don't know them, but
yeah,
I would like to think that.
Yeah. So what happened beyond that? I don't know. Where they are now? I don't know. I do know that I don't believe that Kash Patel has been forthcoming in those hearings.
Yeah. And when he went on Joe Rogan's show last June, he really exposed himself on the Epstein case, because that was something he'd always pretended to care a lot, as if he knew a lot about it. But it was very clear. There was one like 11.5-minute clip from that just floating around where Rogan, just prototypical, quintessential Rogan, just let him hang himself. He didn't even have to do anything. And, that's a bad word to use, hang himself. It's no pun intended.
With Epstein.
But yeah, but it was very clear Cash didn't even understand a lot of the particulars or some of the particulars of the case. And it's like, but you're the guy tasked with, that's not making me feel good about how this is going to go. Yeah. You know, and it's, and I'll say it, it's weird when the head of the FBI goes on interviews and says things like, we have to prioritize our greatest ally, Israel. What the? You're the head of the FBI, bro. You're not dealing with them. You know what I mean? That's where, when we talked about influence earlier, when you hear things like that, you cannot just be like, yeah, la, 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 la. I can't hear that. It's very weird.
There's a reason you're saying it, and it's intentional.
Yes.
It's putting a message out. Everybody
from Hakeem Jeffries to, John Thune to Cash Patel. They're all different people in different seats politically or type of seat or whatever. They're all saying the same thing. Why is that?
Yeah. Man, there's so many other topics I want to get into. I mean, we're kind of coming to the end here. I'd love to talk about UFO disclosure and UAPs and all that stuff. But to wrap up, I want to ask you this, because you've interviewed some pretty amazing people. You built this massive audience. What's the wildest interview you've done? Like the most impactful guest you've had?
It's impossible to say, man, because I do all different topics, man. I do everything. I could have a comedian in here one day, and the next day having a former special forces guy. The next day having a dude who just wrote a really cool book about something random. Next day having a guy who lives in the middle of the Amazon jungle, and next day having a guy who used to work in intelligence, it's so across the board, and they're all different. And I sit with these guys and women for hours at a time, and they all stand out in different ways. When I sat with Sarah Edmondson, who was the whistleblower on the Nexium cult, she was in here for like 5.5 hours. That's 2 podcasts when we do something that long. The way that hits me, that's special, but it hits me a whole different way than when I'm in here with Paul Rosalie talking about the jungle. It hits a whole different way than when I'm in here with Chad talking about, service in hot war zones and stuff like that. So it's hard to say. There's a handful that probably stand out, but then I'll say that and I'll be like, and then there's this one and that one and that one. Yeah. I don't talk with people I'm not interested in. That's the best part about my job. I turn down podcasts all the time behind the scenes that could make me a lot of money because it's like a name or something, but it's like, it's no shot at the person. It's just like, I'm not interested in that. You know what I mean? So
it makes better conversation if you're actually interested, right?
I'm already there. Like when someone gets in here, I'm already excited for it. So even if it's one that after we record it, for whatever reason, it's less entertaining for some reason for people out there, I got to be here. So for me, it's entertaining the whole time. And, some end up making an impact in ways that you don't realize. That is very cool to look back on, or sometimes be like, whoa, that kind of happened. Because you see what this is, man. I sleep right there. Yeah. I did the first 3.5 years I was in my parents' house. I wear flip-flops. Like, I go about my life and I just hit a button that says upload. And then sometimes I come back later. I'm like, oh, wow, that escalated quickly. But it's just numbers on a page to me in a way. It's not like you don't realize it till someone stops you in the street and they'll be like, yo, I can't believe you guys broke that story or whatever. I'm like, what? Oh, wow. You really watched this? No shit.
Yeah, right. It's kind of cool, right? People like, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no, it's amazing every time they do. But I feel like Ashton Kutcher is going to like walk out and be like, you've been punked. But he never does. So I guess they're not. But it's a very cool job to have because of the range of conversations I have. So I can't boil it down to one or two or something like that. But yeah, I've done like 6 with John Kiriakou. So we now have 19 hours on camera together, something like that. He's electric when he comes in here, and he's seen both sides of the coin too. The rare guy who's not still at CIA because they literally threw him in prison. But guys like that are obviously legends. And then, you know, some of the funner stuff is always great. When my buddy Mark Gagnon comes in here, like it's just electric every time. You know, we're going through a million different things. Jokes are flying. It's a vibe. So I love doing ones like that.
Yeah.
You know, and we're not reporting on like when Trump's going to attack Iran. When Mark's in here, I don't care. That's you know, I like to do it across the spectrum. And even the most serious podcasts I've ever done, we have times in there where we're laughing. And I think that's the bit. Like you look at Sean Ryan and what he's done with his setup, and Sean's awesome. He's been on both our shows. Great guy. Amazing what he's built. It's very serious.
Yeah.
It's not to say they never laugh in there. They do. But like it's very serious because that's what his show is. His show is covering the most serious shit all the time. Yeah. And it's in a dimly lit, most beautiful studio I've ever seen in my life. But like you walk in there and you're like, you're in the Shadow Dome now, brother.
Yeah.
You know, like I like it to be lighter in a way because like that's where we'll go. And then when someone's telling me about the most serious, worst thing that's ever happened, we're locked in just like this right here. And we still have this vibe, but it's serious.
Yeah.
So it can kind of shift. Yeah. That's like kind of my lane where it's like laneless. So that's a long-winded way of saying I don't have a good answer.
No, that's good. But I mean, with all the amazing people you've spoken to, the guests you've had, like, is there something that just right now, like keeping you awake at night?
Yeah, this Epstein stuff. The latest one I did with John, the third hour of episode 388 with John, there's a good portion of it that is basically, you know, we have this great back and forth, hilarious conversation on serious shit too as well in the first 2 hours. And then we start going to emails. As I said to him before, I said, you know, he's looked at this case forever. He knows a lot about it. He hadn't done a full deep dive on all the latest emails or whatever. So the point of bringing him here was to get him to kind of react to this and like get his real reaction. So Deef and I were just pulling up emails in the third hour, and I would show him these emails, and then I'd kind of turn to him and be like, what do you make of that, John? And he was sitting in this seat right here, just staring at the screen like this. Yeah, just speechless.
Well, because most people haven't taken the time to go through those emails.
Oh, he's taking the time now.
Yeah.
Because like he was like, I always knew the same reaction I had when I started going through the latest ones. He's like, I always knew this was really bad.
What's the worst one can you think of one that sticks out as one of the worst emails in there?
The one where he says, I'm that guy.
Where he says what? I'm
that guy.
What's that mean?
He's talking to someone else about how he was in a conversation with someone who was making a movie about, you know, a rich man who owns an island and sex traffics people there for blackmail or something like that. And he's recalling this conversation he was having with a woman. And he said that, and then I introduced myself as Jeffrey Epstein and said, hello, I'm that guy. I'm paraphrasing right there.
Yeah.
But he just
admits it. Yeah.
Yes. And that's obviously, we see all these I'm not an organized religion guy, but you can't argue with it. You see these literally satanic emails.
Yeah.
That are going on, like no doubt about it. You see the code words, you see the code words, and you see how, and we still got to figure out exactly what that means, but we know it's something really, really bad, and it involves kids.
Pizza.
Yeah, even before you get to the jerky thing.
Yeah,
the jerky thing is the weird one.
The jerky thing is I think I'm interpreting as cannibalism, right?
Some form of it.
Yeah,
but it. I don't know yet.
Yeah.
But it's bad. And it's...
Is there any that stick out when it comes to like torturing kids? There was some in there that were talking.
He says a lot of things, like when someone dies, he'll say, whoops. And that's code. That's some sort of code because he says it all the time. And then, I mean, you saw the email where he's like, enjoyed the torture video they sent to that sheikh who they covered up. And then Massie and Kana came out and said who it was, which I appreciate. But like, why are you covering up for that guy, first of all? But, you know, God, there's so many that are bad. The one that is just like, is with that journalist, Ed Epstein. No relation. Emailing Ghislaine Maxwell. And that was the one that had John speechless, where he was like, you know, John's life is criticizing CIA and the bureaucracy because of what they did to him. He'll also tell you hey, here's where some good work is done. Here's where it's necessary and stuff. Like, he's very honest about things, but he goes after them. That's why people like him a lot. That's why I like him. And he always knew that 9/11 wasn't everything we saw there, for sure. And there was a lot of going on involving other countries and stuff like that. When he saw that Shadow Commission email, that, like, there's people who are like, oh, he definitely knew. He's feigning shock. I'm like, no, bro. You could hear a pin drop. We had Deef in here, obviously, and then Phil, who helps us on audio sometimes, was here that day. And like the whole time we were light and laughing, you could hear a pin drop in here when he was just sitting there like a Shadow Commission.
Yeah.
You could see that he was even having an existential crisis because he was active during that time period. He was thinking of everything he ever did and questioning even the things that he had some certainty about.
Yeah.
And that was, like, for me, sitting there, that was really heavy to see. Like, really, I never did this.
Yeah.
I don't know. You guys who go over and spend a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades in the worst places, seeing the worst, doing things that people are never going to find out about, and knowing what's good and what's bad in some cases. I got to sit here at home and try to interpret it on Twitter. But like, he lived it. And now he's got to go back and be like, wait a minute. That, to me, I couldn't even imagine what that must feel like. And I'm sure you've had some similar experiences with certain things. And like, I'm not the guy to tell you how to deal with that. I don't know.
Well, yeah, definitely. Thank you for talking, bringing it to public light and sharing it. Last thing I'll ask you, because the show, the show is the Resilient Show, and part of my, part of the theme of the show, I interview guys that have had stories of hardships and difficulties and overcome them, and we get lessons of resiliency. But a big part of the show is informing people, because I believe the more information you have, the more informed you are, the more resilient you're going to be for all the things that are coming out. And so you have been just such a great example of someone that just going out and sharing truth and digging into these issues. What lessons would you have for the audience about just living a resilient life?
Ooh, that's a great question. You got to be okay with losing. There's moments in the studio that stick out to me, little moments. Sometimes it'll be a moment that also sticks out to all the people listening out there. And other times it'll be something that passed over everyone else. But because I was here in the context and what it was, I was like, ooh, that's interesting. Yeah. And back in episode 16, my buddy Mitch Lexamana was on with me, and he was talking about, building an audience and stuff like that. And he said, you got to have haters, because if people are ready to hate it, that means they're ready to love it too. If you only have one or the other, you got a problem. Right? If you have all haters, you're doing something wrong. Yeah. If you have all lovers, you're probably not building anything, and you just have sycophantic, people who claim you're good. But I think it's a good parallel to draw to life, in that if you just try to do everything at 5 miles an hour slowly to make sure you get there safe, well, you ain't going to get there on time. You're never going to get there at all, and you're going to miss the whole party. You got to be willing to drive and hit the gas, and maybe go around a turn a little too quick, and not have the most perfect driving pattern of your wheels on the way. I'm not saying go crash, but like, you cannot live your life with a safety belt on. You have to get the fuck after it. And I've done so much stupid shit in my life, man. I've done that was totally in my control, that I decided to just, I literally use the term decided to just fuck up, or not take something so obvious into account, and later have to be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You don't excuse that stuff. Yeah. That's the thing. There's people who are like, well, I never regret a thing I did because it made me the man I am here today. That's a dangerous thing to say. Yeah. It is okay to be like, I should not have done that. And you know what? I knew I shouldn't have done that either. But on the other side of that, you can't be afraid to look at anything where it's not 100% known and be like, therefore, because I don't have all the information in front of me, I'm not going to do it. You just got to jump in. You got to get after it. And, I take calls to this day whenever I can actually see some message come in. I'll take calls of people who are looking to do this or looking to do that, or have a dream to be in podcasting or something like that. And I want to help them, but I shoot them straight. And I tell them like what I did. and what it is and all the things that I fucked up and the things that I got right and what I would do differently or what I'm looking to do now and what it kind of takes to get there. Say nothing of obviously the time you got to put in. And it's so often when I take these calls, especially when we're talking about like starting a podcast or something like that, where the call starts out like this.
Yeah.
They're like this. And by the end of the call, they're like, oh, I didn't think of it this way. And that's not to discourage them from doing that. But the people who get off that call with that face and then say, fuck it, I'm going to do it and go after it, those are the resilient people. But the reality is that most people don't.
People don't like doing hard things.
They don't like doing hard things.
They want they want their kind of the prize, but don't want to do the, everything it takes to get there. And that's part of the resilient story. And I mean, obviously you've done it. You've been from the $7,000 equipment and going in your back in your parents' house to build this. You've done it, man. And congrats to you. We have I'm sure you have them as well. We have some great sponsors for the show. Smith & Wesson Firearms, Vortex Optics,
right on brand. I like that.
Gators, Silent has Faraday equipment, and I believe like somebody like you should have a Faraday bag, so get a Silent Faraday bag.
I think you're right about that.
I mean, the technology is getting so good; they could grab your. I mean, RFID is like EMP proof, but they could grab all the stuff off your laptop without even touching your equipment now. And so they could remotely take stuff. And so having a Faraday bag is really good. We'll get you one from Silent.
That would be very
get you a cool backpack.
You.
And we'll get you a Smith. I don't know what you can have here in New Jersey. We'll get you a Smith & Wesson gun. We'll get you a
Vortex optic. Smith & Wesson.
We'll get you a Smith & Wesson
You're
gun.
A savage. Let's
yeah. We'll get you Smith & Wesson Vortex. It's some Vortex optics on it, and some Gators glasses. So you look cool, protect your eyes. Yeah, we have some great. And then one of our other new sponsors. I'm big on this. I don't know if you are, but I don't trust that. I think we have one of the. America's a very protected nation, but our grid is so vulnerable.
I think about this a lot.
And I'm on the board of the Center for Security Policy with Tommy Waller, incredible patriot and former 4th Recon Marine, just incredible guy. And one of the things they've exposed to me is how vulnerable our grid is and our financial institutions. And so I'm really big on having tangible cash like gold and silver. And so I just partner with Goldco. I have a website like chadlikesgold.com. I don't know if you're the same, but I will not promote anything that I don't believe in and use.
That is exactly something
my
that
criteria.
I think is really important too.
So important with advertisers. But yeah, for me, like having tangible gold and silver is super important and being prepared. And I don't trust our financial institutions, and
nor should you.
You gotta have some tangible.
I don't trust them either. I saw that from the inside. It's like
you're on Wall Street.
The incompetency.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. If it's on a computer somewhere and the computers are going, you don't have any money.
You don't have any money. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So that's that. We had some great sponsors, like I said, and we'll get some of that stuff over to you. I can tell you workouts. We'll get you some BioPro as well.
Let's go.
Well,
thank you so much for having me, Chad.
Yeah.
This
thanks
great,
for
dude.
it. And I appreciate sitting in your seat.
And now you're gonna flip around.
We'll do it on the. So guys, if you like this episode, which I know you probably did, click like, leave some comments for Julian, and then share it as far and wide as possible. Also, if you're not a member of our Patreon, join our Patreon, because one of the best ways you can support the show to be a Patreon member, as little as $5 a month, and there's always bonus content behind the scenes on our Patreon. So check it out, and we'll see you next week. God bless, and stay resilient. Hey, what's up, Resilient family? I am so grateful for each of you who tune in every week to hear our episodes. We have such incredible guests and topics that I am passionate about, our team's passionate about, and we could not do it without you. So we're thankful for you. We love you. We appreciate you locking arms with us to be more informed, to become a more resilient community. And I want to invite you to become a tighter part of that community by joining us on Patreon. If you go to our show notes below, you can click the link and get dialed into our Patreon and get extra content weekly. You can join for $15 a month and get behind the scenes footage, get closer access to me. I have monthly Zooms that I'll be doing with some members of the community. And so we'd love to get more involved. Again, go below in the show notes and click the link and join today.